What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're going to talk about captaincy. I've not done a captain video for a little while. I've been incorporating it into the game week preview. But given that it's a big double game week, people are probably thinking about going a little bit different. I thought I would do one this morning, and then later on this afternoon, maybe late afternoon, early evening, we will have the game week preview for game week 36. I have done a written article as well for 888 Sport. If any of you want to check that out, link in the description below. Okay, let's start off big hitters. Now, last week on the Game Week 35 preview, I did talk about how there are some opportunities over the last few weeks to go a little bit different. So it could have been Son or Kane last week. Obviously, I know Son obviously smashed it, but without the hindsight, I mentioned Harry Kane as well. I think in Game Week 37, there's definitely potential to go for a double Game Week player over Mo Salah against Southampton. And in Game Week 38, he's got Wolves at home, which is not necessarily a difficult fixture given how Wolves are playing, but there's other good fixtures as well. Chelsea have got Watford at home, Man City have got Aston Villa at home, and obviously Spurs have got Norwich away. So there's plenty of opportunities to go against Mo Salah. The question is, should we be doing that this week? Obviously, he's got a double game week of Spurs at home, Villa away. I've got to be honest, I don't know. Looking at 35, 36, 37 and 38 together, I think this is probably the worst week to go against him because a lot of the other players have just got kind of marks against them as why they might not be quite such a good issue, right? And we're going to talk about other players other than the three on screen right now. But Son, for example, that first fixture Liverpool away looks quite difficult. Now, again, I know what everyone's saying about how high line, Son will get in behind. Spurs did well in the previous game. You would think that Klopp is going to have thought about that and maybe look to counteract that. And I think I think Liverpool will have a lot of the ball in that game. And unless Spurs can get those counter-attacks right, I'm not sure Son is going to have as much luck as people think. I still think he's a really good option. I'm still very jealous of owners. I really wish I could have him this week. But I feel like captaincy is not necessarily the best week to do it. Now, if there was a risk of Salah getting rested, you could probably make the case for Son. But I think the fact that he just got a rest against Newcastle, obviously he did come on, it seems unlikely. He's not going to miss Spurs, and I don't think he's going to miss Aston Villa as well. I think there's every chance that he just plays the next three games and the FA Cup final and then just continues to play the rest of the matches this season. Obviously, if for some reason Man City drop points and, you know, Liverpool end up winning the league before the last game, maybe he gets rested ahead of Champions League, but this isn't a guy that misses many minutes. So I don't think there's much competition from Son versus Salah. Looking at De Bruyne as another big hitter people are looking at, definitely a big differential this week. I think if I had like a really big gap in rank to catch up, maybe I would consider him. My worry is, and obviously I'm recording this before the press conferences, is why did he get brought off around the 71st minute against Real Madrid? Now, obviously, Man City, like Liverpool, are chasing the lead. They probably are trying to rest players when they can, but that game was nowhere near won. They scored the goal after he came off. So that kind of tells me that maybe he wasn't able to make it through the full 90 minutes. Now, I don't think that necessarily means he gets benched again for one of the two games in the double. And obviously, a reminder, it's Newcastle at home and Wolves away. But I do think it shows that maybe he is having his minutes managed, and one start against Newcastle might be 60 to 70 minutes and then the same against Wolves. They could absolutely do damage in those games. I think Wolves are defended. They're just in a really bad run of form right now, and that doesn't mean that they can't come out of it at any point and give City a good game, but I don't think they're going to. And Newcastle at home, again, they could try and cause them problems. They seem to cause Liverpool a few problems towards the start of the game, but ultimately Liverpool dominated that game, and I expect Man City to do the same. And I don't think the 120 minutes against Real Madrid is really going to change too much. Obviously, Newcastle are fully rested. Man City as a team aren't. But I think they've got enough quality players to rotate in that they'll be absolutely fine. So I think if you want to do something a bit different, De Bruyne and Son are probably the best options. I'm going to talk about a bunch more options as well. But I think they've both got question marks over me. And I think this week, if you're going to... you can get stuck into a thing where you're like, okay, I'm this far behind, I'm going to do something different, and then the next week you're even further behind. I just think if you want to go against Mo Salah, I think game week 37 and 38 are the weeks to do it. I'm not convinced this is the week that you should be doing it. I just think he does look like the standout option. Let me know below if you disagree. I haven't forgotten about Harry Kane, by the way. I know I didn't really mention him a lot when I was talking about Son. You can kind of just interchange those two. If you think that Son's a good option, Kane's pretty much going to be a good option as well. But I'll come on to that in a minute. Here's a few others to kind of talk about. We shouldn't completely forget about how good Saka has been this season. Pretty consistent with points. His underlying numbers are obviously not as good as the likes of Salah and Son, right? We get that. We're not saying he is as good, but he does have one of the best fixtures this week, which is Leeds at home. That is a game where I don't necessarily go into this game week thinking that Arsenal are going to smash Leeds, but Leeds are a team that can give up a lot of goals. And obviously the second game is Spurs away, which is not quite as easy. But one thing this week, right, I'm talking about De Bruyne's minutes getting managed. I'm talking about Son having difficult games. We're going to talk about a lot of players later on in the game week preview where I'm just not sure how many minutes they're going to get. With Saka, as long as he's fit, as long as he doesn't pick up an injury, 80 to 90 minutes in both games is going to happen. And one thing we also shouldn't forget, if you think that Nketiah is now nailed in that Arsenal team, Saka is the penalty taker, right? He's taken the last two. Since then, Arteta has said, I think it was for the last game, that if they got another penalty, Saka would step up and take it. So the fact that he's converted the last two, and they don't really have anyone else to take them, means we should now incorporate that into our thinking when we decide how good of an option he is. So it doesn't mean he goes, like if Salah's here and Saka's here, Saka doesn't just suddenly go to here, of course, but he does come up from where he was because of those penalties. They're very hard to predict. He could get none for the next 10 to 20 games, but he could also get another 1 or 2 against Leeds, right? Who knows? So I really like Saka as a kind of nailed-on option if you're not looking to go kind of too punty. Cancelo is definitely a good choice. I don't see him missing either game in the double, even though he's just played 120 minutes. They just don't have enough fit defenders. And the fact that Walker went off, I just don't know if they're going to risk him as much in a Premier League game as they would have done for that Champions League kind of second leg against Real. So I think Cancelo is pretty nailed. And I also think Newcastle at home and Wolves away, they're two teams that aren't going to cause Man City a huge amount of problems. Again, you'll have to assess for yourselves how much emphasis you put on the fact they've now gone out of Europe. What will that do to their morale, etc. I mean, I think they win both of these games and probably to nil, right? I think they're just that good. Neither of these teams are Real Madrid. They're probably not going to cause them as many problems. The only thing I would say is when we think about Cancelo, right? I know we discussed this on the stream, I think, on Sunday. A lot of people like frustrated. He's not had great form, not a huge amount of points. He has been pretty consistent, and I would expect kind of 12 points plus from him, but we shouldn't think that he's as good an attacking defender as Trent and as Reece James. If you look at those expected goal involvement numbers, 0.24 per 90. That's really good. Don't get me wrong. It is really good. It's why we like him. And then he's in a team that keeps a lot of clean sheets. But compared to Trent and James, like they're almost double those numbers for attacking potential, which is why you would see them as more likely to get those, big returns. And the reason I've not put Trent on this graphic is because I think a lot of people, if they're going for Liverpool, will just go for Salah. Whereas with Man City, you probably could make a case to go for Cancelo over Foden, over De Bruyne, or whichever other Man City attacker you're looking at. So I do like Cancelo. I think there's a good chance of 2 clean sheets, possibly bonus, and then hopefully an attacking return as well. And I've stuck Richarlison on, but again, I think a bit like probably other players, if you're going to captain him, it's got to be next week, I think, for the 2 home games. I think Watford away and Leicester away, obviously he plays Leicester first in the double this week. They're not bad fixtures, but again, I think if you're going to go different, I think you've got to pick and choose the weeks that you do it. So next week, Richarlison will be quite heavily captained, so he's not going to be as big of a differential, but a lot of people will get drawn to maybe sticking to single game weekers like Salah against Southampton, but also other double game week players, right? Zaha's got, 2 away fixtures, but he's got a double. He's on penalties. You've got Coutinho and Watkins, etc. at Aston Villa. Some people will be kind of pushed towards them. But if you want to go really massively differential, Richarlison should be nailed for 290 minutes. He's got penalties. His numbers are kind of pretty poor compared to the other players we're talking about. But I don't know. If you want to go massively punty, he's the one. But again, I think someone like Saka, for captaincy, his ownership is quite high, but for captaincy, it's not going to be that high. I definitely prefer him over Richarlison, I think, this week. I just wanted to put a bunch of other players in this video because every time I do a captaincy video, I mention like 6, 7, 8, 9 players. There's always someone that says, well, you didn't mention this player. And obviously, it's hard to go fully in depth for all of them. So I'm just going to give you some very brief thoughts. I do like Trent. I think there's definitely an argument to be made that he is a better defender option than Cancelo this week because of his attacking potential. So if you remember, I just mentioned Cancelo 0.24 expected goal involvement. That is good for a defender, right? Not knocking him at all. But Trent is 0.24. 0.44, and he has put that in over a large period of time. The guy is ridiculously attacking. I just think when I look at the fixtures, I could absolutely see them conceding against Spurs. Maybe not against Villa, but against Spurs. So that kind of puts him... I don't know. I just kind of favour Cancelo a little bit more. I think it depends what your emphasis is on. If you think there's a chance that Liverpool can keep a clean sheet against Spurs, and then you add in the extra attacking potential from Trent, he is definitely ahead of Cancelo. But if you're looking at it from a clean sheet perspective only, I think Man City are much more likely to keep 2 clean sheets in this double. It might go completely wrong, but that's how I would view it. Harry Kane, obviously, like when I talk about like a Spurs big hitter like Son, I'm kind of inadvertently also saying that Kane is also a really good option. I suppose one of the benefits that Kane has is penalties. One of the benefits that Son has is clean sheet points, right? And I know they're not worth the same, but they can always add up. You know, every little helps, as Tesco say. But I don't think Son gets a clean sheet in either game in the double, so he's not going to probably get those extra 1 or 2 points this week. And like if you look at the numbers for the season, they are very similar. And obviously, Son gets extra points for the goal, but at some point, Kane. I can keep saying this probably for the next 10 to 20 game weeks, but at some point, Kane is going to start outscoring Son, right? It was the same a few weeks ago. I'm like a broken record, I know. Everyone was going on about Kane, then Son smashes it. Now everyone's turning back to reverse those transfers. At some point, Kane is going to do it. And again, I know we're all picturing the Liverpool game that Kane is playing Son in behind, so if Son's scoring the goals, he's going to outscore Kane again. I get that. But if you don't own Son, Kane is also a good captain option this week. Is he better than Salah? Not in my opinion, but I think there's definitely an argument to be made that he's as good, if not better than De Bruyne, because of all the rest that Spurs are having right now with no Europe, and because obviously he's nailed on to start 90 minutes and he's got penalties in his locker. So I'd probably put De Bruyne ahead slightly, but I think if it was me, I don't know. I think that Real Madrid game would really kind of put me off a little bit with De Bruyne. I need a big rank increase, or you know, need to be quite far behind in mini leagues, I think, to go for him at this point. Foden played 120 minutes, which isn't great, but I still think he's going to start both games. His numbers are ridiculous, 0.64 expected goal involvement. I expect City to score in both games. Again, outside shot captaincy if you're looking to do something a bit different. I've put Alonso on here because I think, and I kind of agree with the crowd, that if I was going to back a defender to play both games in the double, it probably would be Alonso just because of Reece James. Obviously Rudiger, right, ahead of both. But if we're looking at attacking potential, Alonso and James are the two. Because of James's recent injury concerns and obviously getting that rest a couple of games ago, I think there is more likelihood for him to miss one of the games versus Alonso. For what it's worth, Alonso could definitely miss one of the games as well. I just think he's more likely to play than James, and his attacking potential is there to see. We saw it in the last kind of double for them in 34, where he got, the assist and the goal and came away with like a 19-pointer, which was pretty damn good. Maddison, Leicester just played in the European Conference. I've got to remember what all these different competitions are called. He did play, I think, the full game. So I think there is a chance he gets rested against Everton, even though they're out. So that Norwich game could spell a decent haul. But I don't know. Again, you got to decide how much emphasis to put on the fact they're now out of Europe. They don't have much to play for. Okay, they can still get up league positions. I get that. But they kind of went all towards European competition, right? They rested players. Maddison wasn't even in the squad against Spurs. Apparently it was the hip issue. So either that was just to rest him fully, or he has actually got an issue, in which case that's one less reason to captain him as well. And then differential, obviously, if we're saying that Salah's a great option because of the fixtures he's got, because of his output, then any other Liverpool attacker, Jota, Diaz or Mane, could also be a good option. I think it's just very difficult to nail which one of those is going to start twice, whereas I think Salah almost certainly will. So that's just some brief thoughts. Obviously, it's difficult to go in depth on every single player when there's so many to talk about, but Salah does look like the standout this week. And I think just because of guaranteed minutes, I think you probably have to put the likes of Saka, Kane and Son maybe even above the Man City players. I don't know, if you can get the right Man City attacker as always with the right minutes, then they could be great this week. Foden and De Bruyne would definitely be right up there. But while the others have got maybe slightly more difficult fixtures, you know they're going to play. You know they've got penalties in their locker. I would definitely look at that as well. Let me know below if you're going massively different. Like I said, I think game week 37 and 38 might be the time to do it rather than this week with Salah. But hey, I'm a boring manager. Maybe you want to do something a bit more interesting, but I will be captaining Salah this week. So yeah, let me know below who you're captaining. Give it a like, hit subscribe, and I'll be back again later on with a game week preview.